A brief introduction to this video capture of Kevin Annett. I really respect this man for his advocacy on behalf of the vulnerable, particularly First Nations people. Some say, you know, why don't they take care of their own stuff? Well, they are, but it's kind of like a white guy coming out and saying this has happened. This has happened in the past where Native communities were decimated by church and state, the white folk. So he's been very vocal on the atrocities, the murders committed against the Native community under the rules of the state, which is very appropriate now. I think this comment, this is a very important video he's made on the resistance that people are showing to now it's not just white guys, it's everybody from a governmental point of view is on board of the lockdowns and quarantines and stuff. So my commentary is as a voice, a small voice with many other small voices. Many other small voices make a big voice, maybe. I don't know how it's going to work to counteract the suckerborgs who have Facebooks and the Illuminati that are out there. You know, you can research all the people behind the curtain, and the space sex guy, what's his name? Elon, the space sex guy. Anyway, there are so many usual suspects now that we've identified in the alternate media, what is known as the alternate media. But the alternate media is of little consequence unless people have a functioning conscience. I always talk about this. We can have all the information, all the intellect, all the depth of understanding, but if you lack a conscience, meaning something that motivates us to act a certain way, or even just to consider something to be of value and importance, it's all for nothing, which is like, I shouldn't maybe say for nothing. I mean, intellectually, we can dissect and understand. Somebody pointed out, I do not understand, I overstand. Yeah. What am I saying? There is a way of being as a human being. There is a way that separates us from being, from mattering to being insignificant. And those that harp on the idea of the intellect being everything, well, I beg to differ. I have met extremely important people to me that weren't well-read or had extreme sensibilities of computational abilities and memory and intellectual reasoning, logic, all that kind of stuff. They were just really good people that were really wonderful to be around because they were generous, they were kind, they would offer you their house, they would offer you shelter, food, just, you know, whatever they had was yours, and it had nothing to do with, oh, I'm really smart. In fact, the opposite, I think, is true, that the more intelligent and smart people become, look at Nazi Germany. These were all very highly intelligent, motivated people. The judges, the autocrats that ran the show weren't stupid people. They loved art. They loved Wagner. They loved high art. So intellect is not high on my list. So anyway, my comment here obviously has to do with the crisis that has been created around something that can be claimed to be whatever they want it to be. So if you have this illness that appears not to create sickness, you can actually claim it to be anything you want if it doesn't show illness. For example, I'll just say there last year, I think the numbers of cases of TB, tuberculosis, highly infectious apparently, was 10 million worldwide with 1.5 million deaths. Now, why wasn't there a lockdown, and why didn't this come to our attention? That with 10 million cases of TB worldwide and 1.5 million deaths. This should have been cause for lockdowns. Well, you know what? It's not sexy enough, because this disease, this COVID thing, can actually cover a lot of ground without actually having to produce any evidence. And people say, well, there's lots of evidence, lots of cases. And again, this all turns out to be something that is told to us over a medium that is completely manipulated and controlled. Most people in their right mind understand CNN or Fox or ABC and CBC. All these outfits are completely manipulated. People can say, oh no, they're independent newscasters and all this, but well, I'm not going to be able to convince anyone that is committed to the idea that the world is exactly as it appears to be, and I trusted wholeheartedly, especially all those government officials who can only have interest in our well-being. They're so interested in us. They put fluoride in water, and they put aluminum in chemtrails or into vaccinations, and they give it to us, and they're so interested in our well-being that, yes, of course, they're right on this pandemic thing. They've isolated a virus, supposedly. It has not been proven anywhere that they've isolated this horrible disease, and they're going to make sure we're all really well with all the mandates they create. I'm going to get to Kevin Annett and his thing. The last point I want to make is, what's curious to me is that all the terrorist activities have ceased since this particular virus has taken hold. COVID has stopped all suicide bombers from, they're afraid now of catching the virus, obviously. They're not attacking Western democracies. They're so angry with us for our democracy. Look at, I guess they don't have to be angry anymore because we don't have democracy, so they don't have to attack us for the democracy that we have. Obviously, that's my conclusion, because all those nasty terrorists have stopped doing their attacks on a vulnerable population. Anyway, I'm going to play this. This is a really good video about a community that's not taking it, apparently. I've not researched this, but let's see what Kevin Annett has to say.
Hello, everyone. It's August 25th, 2020. This is Kevin Annett, Eagle Strong Voice, speaking to you from within the Republic of Canada, formerly the Dominion of Canada, now under common law jurisdiction. Well, throughout the world, the powers that are imposing this corporate police state are attempting to keep everyone in a state of despair with each new police state regulation. But today on the west coast of Canada, a shot was heard around the world. And it came from the citizens of Parksville, Qualicum, who for the last several months have organized themselves, along with many other Canadians, in local common law assemblies, the Oceanside Common Law Assembly. Last night, at a special meeting, they brought in a local bylaw, which is now binding on all the citizens, which actually bans COVID restrictions and other measures. Let me read the news release they're sending out today. COVID restrictions and mandatory vaccinations are outlawed and nullified by Common Law Assembly. Citizens are encouraged to resist police state measures, as officials are threatened with fines and imprisonment. And this is from Parksville, British Columbia, on central Vancouver Island. In a historic act of direct democracy last night, the Oceanside Common Law Assembly passed a public safety bylaw that prohibits COVID restrictions and mandatory distancing, masking, quarantines, and vaccinations anywhere in the communities of Parksville and Qualicum Beach on Canada's west coast. As of today, anyone who tries to impose COVID regulations on the people of these communities can face fines and imprisonments by the Common Law Assembly and its Common Law Court, which is
This would be a community, if anybody is wondering where to relocate to investigate this community, if this is one of the bastions of relief from these oppressive measures, this would be a community. Anyway, I interrupted him. I just thought, hey, if you're wondering where to go, this might be a good place.
was convened this last month. Citing international law, the Assembly bylaw states that these COVID regulations, quote, are unlawful, unwarranted, and medically unsound measures that threaten and assault the fundamental liberties, health, and security of the people of our community. Therefore, it is ordered that no one is obligated to consent to or comply with any of these regulations, and anyone is free to actively resist and disobey such regulations and measures by any means necessary without fear of legal consequence, unquote. What that means is that civil disobedience has now been lawfully authorized by the Common Law Assembly, and that applies to anybody within their communities. The bylaw concludes by accusing anyone who tries to impose COVID regulations on the community as being part of a criminal conspiracy. And it threatens them with, quote, penalties and imprisonment upon conviction by the Common Law Court of Parksville. All police authorities are expected and compelled by law to enforce this bylaw or be charged with obstructing justice and democratic process. Well, in the words of one of the authors of the bylaw, quote, we made history tonight by putting power back in the hands of the people. This is our answer to the police state and the COVID scam. We call on people everywhere to take the same step through their own common law assemblies and courts. Since 2015, more than 40 common law assemblies have formed across Canada, many of them under the jurisdiction of the Republic of Canada. The assemblies have become the frontline defense of Canadians who are resisting the corporate police state. Now, you can get more information by writing to Republic of Canada, that's K-A-N-A-T-A, republicofcanada@gmail.com, or see their website, republicofcanada.ca. It's now up to all of us to take heart from this example and realize that we can take back power and turn the tables on these forces of repression and corporate fascism that are attempting to take our children from us, quarantine them in schools 2 weeks from now, literally imprison them, kidnap them, and keep them hostage until people agree to vaccinations. We're saying no in a big way, and we're saying anyone who tries that is now a criminal under the law, and they can be subject to arrest. It doesn't matter how high they are. It doesn't matter if they're premiers, prime ministers, popes, anybody in authority. They are subject to arrest under common law. It is now up to we, the people, to enforce that. Again, write to us to become part of this great historic movement, republicofcanada@gmail.com and murderbydecree.com. Stay tuned for more information. I thank you.
There you have it, a man of conscience. I really appreciate his input, his ideas and thoughts, and what he's involved in, and how similar does the COVID directive stuff begin to look like the decimation in the Native community. It's like history repeating itself, but now we're all subject to the ordinances taking children away from us, not the schools having to put masks on children. This is bloody outrageous. The trauma that this will cause to walk around, children walking around each other with their faces covered like bank robbers. It's so unconscionable to me to actually, as a human being, it's like parents allowing this. I've always had issues with parents. You know, I've talked about this in many of my videos, sending their children to school at 8 o'clock in the morning in minus 20-degree temperatures and walking with their little brother, you know, they're 10 years old and the brother is 7, walking to school. It's like, I don't understand how parents can just sort of drop the ball like that. I know people say, well, parents love their children, but not enough to put yourself in their spot and try to remember what it felt like. This is highly necessary now, to have this empathy, to have this ability to see through the veil. The world is not what it appears to be. And the more they insist and tell us in the news, and the more they harp on this, the more this mind-altering is being used in order to affect our judgment, the more the world is not what it appears to be. And I think this is something that obviously, fortunately, a small group of people are still aware of, and hopefully it'll catch on in the rest of the community. So anyway, look at this man of conscience.